Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. You did nothing wrong, OP. If your neighbor actually cared about your well-being, she would have been relieved at the Spanish and Polish speakers clarifying that you were fine. The fact that she was embarrassed shows what her real motives were. Eavesdropping busybody. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Embarrass my neighbor because she didn't understand me. My, female 29, husband, male 31, moved into a nice flat near the city center. We're in England. It's a rather nice area. Our next-door neighbor has her balcony next to ours. My husband is half Spanish, half Polish. I'm Polish. We speak both languages and often speak in a weird amalgamation of both, sometimes adding English to the mix. Anyway, both languages are spoken rather fast, or they seem so, and can sound a bit aggressive if you're not used to them. I've had people assume I was angry because of how the language sounded to them when I was having a completely pleasant conversation. My neighbor was no exception. She's heard us talking and must have assumed we were arguing. We weren't. She approached me and asked me, concerned, if I was okay. I was confused, and she explained that she'd heard our arguments. I explained that I was fine and we hadn't argued at all. I suggested that it might be because of how harsh both languages can sound. She didn't believe me and told me she was there if I needed help. I told my husband, we laughed and decided to speak a bit more quietly just in case. One day we were chatting and joking around when two police officers knocked on our door. Someone called with concerns about my well-being. WTF. We explained our situation, they took me aside, and I had to explain everything. It was humiliating. Even more so for my poor husband. The next day, my neighbor approached me again, and I repeated that we weren't arguing and she had to let it go. She told me that she wouldn't have to worry if we just switched to English. I told her we wouldn't be doing that, and she'd have to take my word for it and stop bothering us. Last night, she posted a recording to our neighborhood's group. It was of me having a good time with my husband, joking around. She said she believed I was in danger and asked what to do and who to report it to because I was in denial. People were agreeing with her, calling me names, and told her to keep recording because I was covering for him and complaining of how difficult it was to help foreigners when they don't speak English. They called me all sorts of names for covering for my husband, and I was just confused. It was until someone who spoke Spanish chimed in and said that we weren't arguing. Someone who spoke Polish said the same thing and told her to mind her own business instead of recording people. She removed the recording. Today, she knocked on my door shouting at me, telling me I humiliated her and I must have done it on purpose to toy with her when she was just concerned. I told her I explained it to her many times, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept shouting and calling me names, and I just shut the door in her face. Edit. I just want to clarify, we really weren't loud. Our walls are thin. I can easily hear her talking in her flat, and she talks normally if she's in the adjacent room. She recorded us from the balcony. We had our balcony door open and we're chatting inside. She video recorded from her balcony when she was outside. Our balconies are very close. And our second story. Entitled customer demands the impossible, leaves empty-handed. This event happened 4 or so years ago, so I apologize in advance for any inaccuracy. Here's the cast of our story. AD, awesome decorator, a great coworker who has a good sense of humor and takes no crap from customers. EM, entitled mother, one of the many reasons most workers in either fast food or retail wear a hat or hairnet. No, not only to keep hair out of the product, but to keep us from tearing our hair out in frustration whenever they're near. Me. At the time, a bakery associate prepared to stock, clean, and take cake orders. During graduation season or any time of the year, the bakery of pretty much any retail and/or grocery store will usually need a minimum 24-hour notice for cake orders, and the bakery can get up to 10 to 12 cake orders a day. And not only does our bakery do cakes, but cupcakes in quantities of 6 and giant cookies as well. Also, it's always first come, first serve. Now on to the story. This particular day was like any other Monday. I went about my tasks of stocking the bakery tables and shelves with all of our bread and goodies while AD decorated the graduation cakes. I had to stop my tasks to take 8 cake orders that day alone. It was going on around 5 p.m. AD still had at least 3 or 4 cakes to finish, and she was supposed to be done with her shift at 7 p.m. It was slow going when EM approached the bakery. The conversation between AD, EM, and me went as follows. AD, hey OP, could you please take this customer's order? Me, of course, AD. One moment, please, ma'am. I finished putting the last of the items in their place and go to grab the clipboard that has the order sheets. Me, thank you for waiting, ma'am. Now, EM, in a rather snooty voice, I want to order one of your cookie cakes. Me, surprised by the voice and the request, but continue with the order. Okay, ma'am, and how would you like that decorated? When it comes to non-licensed cake and cupcake designs, the customer can usually ask for pretty much anything within reason. EM, I want it with springtime colors. That was it, just springtime colors. No specifics, no flowers please, or like a garden or anything. Me, internally screaming, okay, EM, and I need it in the next 20 minutes. AD, ma'am, that's impossible. I need a minimum of 24-hour notice for any order, plus I'm behind as it is with all the graduation cakes I have to decorate. EM, well, I called the bakery earlier and was told I could get it done today. AD and I exchanged knowing looks. That whole day I worked 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. AD was there 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., our usual schedules. That entire day we hadn't received a single phone call. All the orders had been in store. AD, I highly doubt that, ma'am. My coworker and I have been here since early afternoon, and we haven't received a single call today. EM, sputtering, well, I spoke to a manager and he said I could get it done. Me, which manager was it, ma'am? If you tell us his name, we can page him over the radio and get confirmation. EM, he didn't introduce himself. That was a red alert right there. I knew for a fact it was store policy for a manager to introduce themselves when answering the phones. I also knew the managers didn't answer the phone unless they were paged for a phone call answered by the assigned associate. Me, ma'am, all our managers introduce themselves when they answer a call. EM, well, what the heck am I supposed to do? Go to nearby grocery store that also has a bakery? AD by now is fed up with the lady's BS. AD, that's up to you, ma'am, but I know for a fact they also require a 24-hour minimum notice for their orders as well. EM, this is ridiculous. Me, ma'am, we do have some pre-decorated cakes if you'd like to go with one of those. EM, no, those are ugly. Knowing this isn't going anywhere, I proceed to put the clipboard back in its place and continue with my tasks. Instead of leaving, EM, along with her kids, who'd been surprisingly well behaved the whole time, proceeded to storm and loiter around the bakery and produce area, which was in the same general area. AD and I both managed to clock out around the same time, and when we left, EM was still loitering. For someone who claimed she needed the cookie in 20 minutes, she didn't seem too keen on finding an alternative. AD had the following Tuesday off, but when she and I worked again together on Wednesday, she told me when she was driving home the night this happened, she realized something. Turned out, even if she had had the time to do the cookie order, she wouldn't have been able to anyway. We didn't have any blank cookies for her to decorate. The number of people who need things immediately right now, this very second, but then have all day to kvetch and moan. And our last story. Parents took and sold my car. The policeman doesn't help. First, some background. I no longer get along with either of my parents. I won't go more into it than it's not reconcilable because of serious abuse. I bought a car when I was 16 and still living with them, and they believe that makes it theirs. Title and everything was originally in my mother's name, but was transferred into my name for 3 years now. It's mine and only my car. When the family split, my parents tried to call in what they called debts of a minor, which they tried to convince me was a legal term, saying if I took support away from them, then they had the right to recall all money involved in raising me. I went away for 2 weeks in September and left my car with my brother, who I still get on well with. He's still in contact with my parents. They visited him a couple times when I was away, and on the last visit, they stole the keys to the car from him and drove off with it. My brother told me immediately and said I'd deal with it when I got back. It happened a few days before I was to get back. I went to my parents to get my car, and they said they'd sold it, and the $8,000 they sold it for was to go towards debts of a minor, and they inform me I now have only about $180K to go before I've paid them off. I called the police immediately to report it stolen, and they seemed to prefer to listen to my parents, who said the title was in their name. I have title in my name, however. Advice from the police was to work it out between ourselves. Useless. So where I'm stuck now is I have no car, I have no keys to it, it's out there somewhere, and my parents refuse to tell me where it is. It's my car and I can prove it. Update. I went to the station in person and got a lot further with different officers who asked what happened before with the other officer and rolled their eyes when I said his name. I have my brother fully on side and we both made statements. I've contacted my insurance. All I needed was a more with-it police officer. I went in person with all the documentation proving that my car is my vehicle and with my brother, and stated clearly that my car had been stolen and sold and we knew who did it. The officer I dealt with this time treated everything seriously and listened to us both. I had my car back within 2 days. My parents had taken it and hadn't sold it like they claimed, but were renting it to someone they knew. The car was retrieved from the rentee's house. I hadn't yet made a claim on it, so it was returned to me the day after retrieval. My mother's been charged, and I've also been questioned about my parents' drug use. I'm over the moon that what they did trying to rip me off has shown a light on more of their behavior. I'm still trying to gain clarity with my insurer about possible internal damage to the engine or transmission and having that thoroughly checked out, but that's beside the point. As a bonus, this was the last straw for my brother. He'd been still living under our parents' thumb, and this gave him enough reason to also cut them off and commit to acting against them. I have my car back and my brother back more than I did before. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.